There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. All right, welcome. We made it to our second episode. We made it past the pilot. I mean, hopefully, if you're listening to this, we made it past the pilot. If not, it's buried somewhere in a library. But I want to start this off. I'm going to try and start off every episode with a quote. So I'm going to start this one off. It's a powerful thing for the youth to see an environment of men that strive to support one another instead of breaking each other down. And that's actually from a general body participant of Kalamazoo Black Male Alliance. And our guest today is Michael Harrison. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, Michael Harrison, from Kalamazoo, family of 7. Hits done at 7. Executive director of the Kalamazoo Black Male Alliance. Passionate about community development service, and I'm invested in black men.
Nice. So how long have you been in your current role?
I'm going to say my whole life, man. I've been black my whole life. But as the executive director of the organization, we've been around for about 4 years. 3 years officially, 4 years in development. So as the director, I've been serving about three and a half years.
Okay. No, that's cool. I mean, the whole point of this podcast is pretty much every time I run into new people, new organizations, I think, man, I wish I knew a Michael Harrison when I was younger, when I was a kid. If I had a mentor like that to help bring me up, my life would have been completely different. I mean, granted, I like where I'm at. I wouldn't change things. I met my wife, all the different cheesy stories and whatnot. But I just think, like, wow, if, like, I see all the work that you're doing, I'm just like, man, I wish I knew about something like that when I was younger. And I don't know, that's just the point of the whole podcast, is just to bring light to the work that you're doing, the work that everyone's doing in our community, and also to connect us.
Absolutely.
Because that's very important. So so how do you engage with the Kalamazoo community?
I think it started off originally with my family. So we moved up here from Atlanta, Georgia, and we were a party of 4 at the time. And, I was coming from community development work, so I was interested in kind of keeping that passion and that work going. So I started collaborating with a consulting company, and the consulting company did work in the community. And that really got me invested. I also wanted to get an idea about my surroundings, who I was living next to and, was going to be raising my family with. So that initial investment just came with exploration, right? Like, just want to explore the community, see who's out here. Then you start to see the same faces. Then you start to build connections with brothers and just get different opportunities to learn about how the city was moving and how to get involved. So when we first got here, I was looking to kind of keep going. I wanted to serve in any way possible and really just invest in the community to make sure I could embrace it and it embraced me.
That's beautiful. I mean, it just all goes along with like what everybody else is trying to do, trying to make connections, trying to get to know each other, but also you're invested. You got family here. You got lots of people that you have a passion for this, a personal interest in it. So I'm glad for the work that you're doing. I'm thankful for it. I'm glad for the times that we've been able to link up for different events and stuff. And then even to hear your presentation at the Black Boys and Men Symposium, that was awesome.
Thank you, man. It was hard work. It was early in the morning, but we knocked it out. So
Next time they got to put you a little bit later.
Yeah, man, I got to go before lunch.
Right.
Nice, give me a nice setup or something. But yeah, it was great, man. Especially to see all black men come together and we all focused on the same topic, and then people from outside our community too. So it's a good space.
Yeah. And that even just being there, being in a space where everyone like when every day you feel that pressure of like being a minority when you're not the dominant culture, but then to be in a space like that where everyone is in the same space as you, everybody's been through the same stuff, and you can actually make genuine connections, like, and you can talk about that stuff. A lot of that stuff is difficult. It's heavy. Like it's not just general office talk, or at least
powerful, right? Like if you feel powerful in the room, you feel like you got it, he got it. Everybody comes with it, right? So being in that room, being able to build with brothers like that, or just build with anybody that's in that space, right, that is passionate about what we are here talking about or focused on, is empowering, right? So sharing the power, building it, and then using it is what we need to do in that space provided that. So it was dope.
So how do you specifically collaborate with the Kalamazoo Promise and other organizations?
So I like to do it up front, just straightforward. This is what we need and how we work together. And I think it starts with conversation about what's possible. But before we can dream, right, you got to know what's going on in the present life, right, what's happening right now. So I think the best way that I show up in collaboration is to be a part of what's going on, and then building strategies or solutions or ways for us to collaborate more in the future. So most of the work is around the students, right? The students, the youth in the community, the families that are in the community, and most of the organizations like the Promise or, any other one in the community, they touch that. So the best way in order to serve a community is to serve, not lead sometimes. And it's easier to partner up with people that are doing great work in the community and then are mission focused and mission aligned, and then add your effort, energy, and engagement, right, to their work. And now when we build something or the opportunity comes for us to, do more with our partnership, that's the time to strike. Because they see value in your participation and your effort. They've seen some kind of skin in the game. Somebody told me skin in the game. Skin in the game, right? Like, but you show it, right? When you show up and you volunteer or you participate in somebody else's needs, not your own. So I've always kind of lived in that lane where I'm always showing up at somebody else's event, right? Like, and serving. But I think that's the first step in building a partnership that leads to collaboration. You just can't go in and say, hey, let's do this. You got to build trust. You got to have an understanding about, process. And there's a lot of different steps that happen. So one of the things that I appreciate now is learning the process of collaboration with the new organizations or with this organization and any other ones in the community, because it's new, right? Like it's not something that's easy to do because we're all passionate about our work, but I think it's something that's needed, and we have to figure out the best way to do it between the partners.
Yeah. I know one of the things that you talked about, like during your presentation, was just having a plan, talking about what is this going to look like 5, 10 years from now, not just like, oh, we got to get together, we got to do this. Like actually seeing it in perpetuity, seeing the longevity in it is really important. So like I appreciate that. I was taking notes during the whole thing.
But people want, they want immediate success, right? Like, man, I need to move this or do this right now because it accomplishes a goal. But sometimes that goal that's accomplished makes more work for the other people. You know what I mean? And if you don't think about your plan or have other people involved in it, right, it's just a one focused thing, then you do more damage than good sometimes, right? Not all the time, but sometimes. So it's like I want to be a part of the process and be with the people as we build, right? Not me building it for you and then I'm doing it to you, right? That's a different way of service. So in my lens, it's like we need a plan, and coming up with that plan, we can edit it, we can share it, we can do a lot with it. It even gives us a start date and an end time, right? It keeps us on task, accountability measures. We can do anything we want with that plan. But if we don't have one, we just out here winging it, right? Just figuring out how we're going to do it, knowing that it needs to be done. So I think that's important. And the more we can collaborate on a strategic plan between multiple organizations, imagine the impact we can have, across the whole city. So
yeah, that's a big thing. Collective impact is a huge thing. But about you, what's your story? Like who are you? Like what wherever you want to start at. Man. You could start like when you were born. You could talk about your education, career, family, friends, whatever, however far you want to go back, and however far, if you want to come like all the way to right now, it's up to you.
Oh, bro, this is the editing part right here, man. It's been rough, man. So I'll take you out. I'll do it like this. So I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I was raised in the inner city, 27th Street. I didn't see that, but I threw it up. 27th Street. I grew up in 27th Street in the middle of Kansas City, Missouri, and it's much like any urban city across the country, right? You got the same problems, no different. I don't know if it's lucky enough, but I was raised inside of a church. It was an awkward church. I was a Jehovah's Witness, right? So, you know, they the people that come knocking on your doors and selling magazines back in the day. I haven't seen them do it lately, but, you know, it was just a different style that we were into. But that experience connected me with the community, maybe both positively and negatively. Doors shut in your face and people cussing you out. But we were always out there, right? Like, I got to go out. That's just what our family does. Mm-hmm. So, all right, that's high school. Got benefited, or I did good enough to get a scholarship, but I wasn't really tapped into education like that, so I failed out of school. Mm-hmm. I didn't fail out, let me lie. Not a lie like that. I got kicked out of school, right? Like, I was on academic probation. And
this is in college?
This is my freshman year in college. Okay. I was the number 4. I like to say this to people. I was the number 7 kid coming out of my school district at the time. I was blah, 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 and I went to the University of Missouri. Thought I was going to kick it. And I did kick it right on out back to Kansas City on 27th Street. So from that experience, right, like, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready to go. So I sat down with my mom and dad, and it's like, you can't stay here. You know what I mean? Like, you got to figure it out. So got invested into a community college, found a network of brothers that were trying to, accomplish things in their school, with their work, you know what I mean, to try to move on and progress. And then after I got my grades straight, or, the grades that I messed up, I got a chance to go to a HBCU in the middle of nowhere. It was Wilberforce University in Wilberforce, Ohio, which was completely not 27th Street in, Kansas City. So I was completely removed from my environment. Mm-hmm. And in that environment, I found more brothers and sisters that poured into me about what was possible, with potential, or with, education, or with effort. Man, so that really changed. I joined fraternities. I was trying to, do city work. Like, I was always involved in my community, but my experiences kind of kept me connected with that as I kind of matriculated on through my educational process. I got my grad degree out of Atlanta. But in my graduate experience, I was one class. No. Sorry, that was my undergrad experience. My undergrad experience, I was one class before I could graduate, right? You got to give me that 1 credit hour that you owe me.
Right.
So I had to stay an extra semester for 1 credit hour. Pissed,
right?
Right?
That's a lot. As a younger person,
what? That is just, it hit different.
You don't want to hear that.
So it's like I already failed out of college. Right now, I'm back in community college at home with my parents. They trying to kick me out. Then I go to college, all black school, Wilberforce. I do good. But I owe you 1 more credit, so I got to come back. Right? And you know how difficult it is for brothers to stay in college just based off of being there,
especially part time.
Man, so. And I was working, and I was trying to go to school. I wanted to be a teacher at the time, so I was taking a lot of education classes and courses. And then they cut the education program right before I got that 1 credit hour. And they couldn't give any kind of degrees or anything like that, and I had to transfer in order to get it. So when you transfer, you lose credits and all that kind of stuff, especially at the HBCU going to some PWI. So it was rough, man. And then from that, I decided to keep going in education because it just wasn't enough. And I went down to another HBCU, and I did good. It was a great environment. I'm still connected to my community. I learned public administration and community development. So I feel like I added a layer of my education and knowledge into the work I was already doing. But then again, that educational environment, man, I think, in my grad program, I had to write a paper in order to get done. And I think I wrote my paper on gentrification. I thought it was great. Everybody thought it was great. My advisor didn't think it was great.
Right.
So he kept me. He said I couldn't graduate because the paper wasn't, to his liking. So of course it's like, can't have that, right? Like I need to graduate. So from there, man, I had to fight for my degree, right? Following the process, not being afraid to speak up. You know what I mean? Holding people accountable for what you said, paper trails, like all the stuff that you don't need to learn that early.
You don't know that
right.
when you're in this situation. You don't know that stuff.
And it's like I had to learn that in order to get the degree, so it changed my perspective about what's possible when you know the rules, right? Or when you know what's supposed to happen or what can happen. That changes everything. So all those experiences kind of shape me to kind of be how I am. So in this space that I live in now, right, in my 7 people household and, ED role, you know what I mean, how I show up. It's like I'm a sum of my experiences, and those experiences have not always been positive, and they ain't always been healthy, right? But they've been experiences, and that's who I am, you know, and I use those experiences to lead or to connect or to build or to grow myself. And I think that's the most important piece about Michael. It's like, man, I've had a lot of tragedy, trauma, better word, edit that one out, trauma, just unfortunate situations. I had a lot of happy times. And it's like life gives you a bunch of experiences. Failure has provided the most beneficial ones for me. And I've used those experiences that I failed in to kind of grow my own personal development and leadership, and also to kind of hold myself accountable for what I see as possible for other people and how we move collectively. So I think that is my experiences have brought me here, good or bad, and I think I appreciate them because everybody has their own that you come with, and it's one thing to kind of turn your back and say, hey, that wasn't me, or that was a bad time in my life, or, you know, that wasn't the best. That's my story. That might be chapter 2 or 3, right? Yeah. It hit different when you get through the whole book. So I realize that I'm still writing mine, right? And the early chapters only, you know, go with the rest. So,
because there's a lot, like, even just sitting here listening, there's a lot of similarities, like, in your story and mine. Just thinking about, like, the hiccups that you had trying to get through school. And then just, you know, you got another semester you got to get through. And then not knowing, okay, this is what I need to do in order to do this. I need to have a paper trail. I need to follow up with this. I need to advocate for myself. You're not necessarily taught that at any point, and it is a skill that you have to get somehow.
Gotta embrace it, man. And the funny thing is, it's like, being in the Black Male Alliance, it's like most of those experiences, those hiccups, are sometimes caused by individuals that look like you, right, or might have a different perspective than what you are capable of. And you need somebody to teach you those things, you know what I mean? So when you face them or when you come across them, you have a solution, or at least somebody you can reach out to that's going to point you in the right direction. And for me, I didn't, you know what I mean? So a lot of these things that I learned on my own, right? So now seeing that my kids are coming behind me, they're connected to kids, we're in a community, we're surrounded by families that look like mine, stories that are similar. We got to provide the steps and the information and the tools and the strategies to make sure that they have the paper trails, right? They skip the hiccups and go straight to the end, right? Because we already did that. So, I mean, that's one of the things I hope the organization can do, you know, like take out the hiccups of all Black males, you know, experiences. And if we can, the more we can do that, the better our lives will be, and the better the community will be, right? The better everything we touch will be. So, that's how I look at it.
That's awesome. So, if you could do anything to transform Kalamazoo, what would it be? Regardless of money, politics, like anything that would get in the way, what would you do?
That's a great question, man. I wasn't prepared for that at all.
I know. It's a big one.
Ask me again.
Okay. I'll come back to it.
All right.
So I know you talked about, like, your story and how you got where you are. Are there any particular moments that just, like, that motivated you to get where you are now?
Bruh, yeah. Coming back home after you get college was great. My freshman year was great. It was a great experience, you know, coming from the inner city, going to this PWI, right? And being
PWI, just for our listeners.
It's a predominantly or private white institution. So that was the University of Missouri for me, right? The University of Missouri was in Columbia, which was away from Kansas City, and it had a population of people that I had never seen before or wasn't surrounded by. So leaving that, right, was the first shocker, was going there like, I didn't even know this exists, right? Like, that wasn't anything I'd seen before. And then coming home, right? Like, this ain't what you want. Same friends, ain't nobody doing nothing. So that was my first motivation to kind of, we can't do it. We can't stay here. And then, you know, once I got going and actually got the chance to graduate, and they say, you got to come back. Oh, man, you can't let that stop me either, right? See all your friends graduate, right? I'm not a part of that class. I'm the next year's class, even though I got all my credits too, right? So it's the little motivation pieces that bother me that still stick to me today, right? Like, I still hold on to, you know, the fact of not graduating, or, you know what I mean, the one credit I remember the teacher, right? Like, all these are my experiences, like I said before. So I think that those are the motivations, right? The failures are the motivations. When you get knocked down, you're like, shoot, I got to get up, right?
Okay.
Like as you getting up, you better think about what you're going to do. You know what I mean? So you don't get knocked down again. So it's like in my experiences, I got knocked down a lot. And it's like I just kept getting up, not knowing or not thinking about, you know, what I need to do to kind of change or adjust. And I think as I've gotten older, that's my mentality. Like, what should I've learned from that mistake? Or, you know, what do we need to learn from his mistakes? So that way, you know, I can apply it into my own life. So I feel like those are the experiences that kind of keep us going.
Yeah. You got a whole bunch of resiliency. That's what I can say about that. Just getting through it. Even though you don't want to.
Yeah.
It's tough. Are you ready for that question?
Yeah, man, lay it on.
Okay, so if you could do anything to transform the Kalamazoo community, what would it be?
I would spread out the wealth amongst every individual in the community. I think that would, I don't know, I'm going to get edited here, man. I'm about to say my feelings, right? Trying to mind my lane. But it's like money is a big thing here, I've noticed, right? Most money in the community, I've heard, you know, the stats they say, like most dollars that's in the community, you know, across the country and blah, blah, blah. We got FFE dollars, we got, you know, ARPA dollars. There's all this money in the community that we pass between different organizations, right? Different organizations to serve the people. Give money to the housing, right? We got developers and all this kind of stuff. We doing it for the people, right? The one thing that I would love to see is, like, instead of doing it for me, give me the money and let me do it for myself. You know, if you got $150 million, right? $150 million in perpetuity and whatever you want to call it, right? Man, we don't got 150,000 people here, do we? So if I can give 80,000 people $1 million, I change everybody to be a millionaire. That's going to wipe out some things, right? Everybody's not going to know how to use it, right? We're going to have some problems, but I'd rather work on the problems with you being a millionaire than in poverty. So it's like that mindset of like the have and have nots, right? Yeah. The haves need to have in order to stay in power. We need nonprofits and organizations to serve the people, right? Because that's who we're giving our money to, not the people themselves. But when you give the money to the people, you empower the people, and now they feel just as powerful as the rich people, which you can't have, right? So it's traditionally, I mean, you can read old novels and books, right? Like, this is what it is. So I think money's a big thing in Kalamazoo, and the piece that I hope happens, right, is when we can see around it.
Wow. That's big idea.
You know,
see it.
Sorry.
I mean, no, that's what I asked.
Sorry,
no. I think it's awesome. I think it'd be nice to do that.
What?
To just be like, all right, everybody, here's what you need. Do
$1
what you will with it.
And you get the promise, right? You got the promise, and you get $1 million. What, bro? We changing families. We changing all. You know,
things would be different for me if I got $1 million. I'll say that.
Yes, man. We got businesses. You know what I mean? It's like that's the piece. It's not like the money changes something in you. You just get to do what you want to do with the money, right? Like all the talent, all the skills, all the things that you thought about that you wanted to create and provide for the world. All that gets dumbed down when you work from 9 to 5, right? You got to put in 40 hours a week to make sure you focus on somebody else's mission, not your own. So if I can take that mission away, you know, somebody else's, and give you one for yourself, imagine what we could do for our community. And that's what I feel like a lot of nonprofits and organizations slide into, right? Trying to serve that mission of impact in the community. But it's hard, bro, when you ain't got no money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then when you're competing over the same amount of money.
There it is, right?
So that's a tough piece too. I don't know how to fix it, but there's different strategies. And I think one of the best things is trying to collaborate, like you were saying. Using what we do have is a big thing. But I don't know. Well, we could get really into that.
We'll go
so we'll keep it moving. So what are some of your favorite things about Kalamazoo? Favorite restaurants, like anything really?
Honestly, my favorite thing about Kalamazoo is I can go anywhere in 15 minutes, you know, and I can be there. So it lets me be connected to the community, connected to my family, connected to my job, connected to sports events I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm in Atlanta where I got to wait an hour and a half or, you know what I mean? It's like 4 o'clock. I'm not getting home till 6:30. You know what I mean? I might live 5 miles away, right? Or, you know, and I appreciate I can touch things here, right? I know my neighbors. I know my community pretty much, you know, everybody that's there. You know, I know my children's friends. I trust their parents. You know, it's similar to how I grew up, but it's a city, you know what I mean, compared to a block or a neighborhood, right? So I appreciate the feel of the community. It has tons of resources, you know, which I appreciate now as a grown individual, right? You go swimming, play basketball, you know, you can sing, you can dance, you can act, you can do anything you want because there's enough resources in the community and people that are passionate about it that'll provide that space. So I think those are some great qualities that I love to brag about. You know, when I tell people I live in Kalamazoo, you know, where? Kalamazoo. We got a song. You didn't even know it, though.
Right.
So there's a lot of good little things, you know what I mean, that I appreciate about the city because it's not a small city, you know, even though it feels like a small city. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. Good answer. So if the Kalamazoo Promise was available to you, how would it have changed things for you? Another big question.
That is a big question. So I got an academic scholarship to go to the University of Missouri. It's supposed to be a full ride joint, right? It's dope. I was super excited. I'm getting out of here. It was the scholarship I got only let me go to that school, right? So it was prepped to go to that school no matter what, or one of their affiliate schools. So I think having a promise gives you the option of opening up different opportunities across the state. In my state, you don't go east. Ain't nowhere else to go west, right? So it is where you at. You know, people don't go to St. Louis. You know, St. Louis don't come to Kansas City, right? So, and I couldn't tell you anywhere else outside of, you know, my neighborhood or, you know, my immediate city that I felt comfortable in. So I think having a promise exposes you to a lot of different opportunities that you can build with. I think I would have loved to, you know, learn what a Southwest Missouri State could have provided me, or maybe I had a different experience at a, you know, Central Missouri State, or, you know, there's tons of universities all across, but having a promise that has relationships with those, you know, institutions and has access to make sure that you can make it there, and we do everything that you need to make sure once you're there, right? And we got you there, and now we can support you while you're there, right? And we can do anything that needs to be done to make sure you have access to that opportunity, and I think accessing that opportunity is amazing, you know, and it's not something that you think about, or I was even thinking about if it wasn't for that academic scholarship, because my goal was not to go to college. I just wanted to get out the house, right? So the scholarship came, it gave me a chance to get out the community. So I think a lot of kids look at it, right? A chance to kind of grow myself outside of my neighborhood. So having a promise or having a way that you can explore different opportunities outside of your immediate community, you got to take advantage of it. You know?
Yeah.
There's no other way to, you know, grow.
That exposure piece is big because, I mean, even like with me, like I lived here since second grade, and seeing like learning about the different things that were here, I was like, oh wow, like I didn't know this was here. I didn't know this was here. Even Western, the whole reason I went to Western was because my friend told me about, hey, you should come to this Bible study. I was like, okay, I'll come check it out. Like I didn't have anything else to do on a Wednesday night. Went and checked it out, and I was like, oh, this is dope. Like is collegiate Black and Christian, and I hadn't seen so many people like me in the same space, and then also focus on school, focus on education. Like they're students first, but also they had a community within that. So to see that, I was like, wow, like I started going to the Bible study, but realizing like I needed that community, like regardless of what it was, I needed a community. And then I started going to KVCC because I was like, I can get in. I can get into KVCC, start going to classes there, and then I transferred to Western. So that was my whole motivation, was trying to like, one, seeing something new, seeing something I liked, and then trying to be a part of it by also going there. So that I like that she said that.
You gotta have exposure, you know what I mean? And I think another piece to that exposure, right, that I'm hopeful for that the KB May can do, you know, is expose youth and adults, right, to other communities that offer the same kind of community, if that makes sense, right? There are other places in this world that are trying to do the same things we are with our community. So when you see that, you know what I mean, it gives you more passion and it's inspiration about what you should be doing and what you can do with your opportunity. So I think that exposure has to be to see what you have available in front of you and what other kids don't, and they take advantage of, right, and what they're trying to, you know, inspire to. So they need exposure to everything, right? Not just not just the good things, but the bad things too, because we need them to work on those problems when they get older, right? Mm-hmm. And the good things too. We want you to enjoy the things that we enjoy as well. So I think that's one thing I'm hopeful for. So they should be, we should all enjoy the same things, the same experiences, and the same exposures, positive and negative, to grow. So
yeah. So if you had a gold nugget of information that you would share with someone who would like to do the same work as you, what would that gold nugget of information be? It could be as simple as one word. I've heard people say like connections or network.
If you want to do the same thing that I'm doing, then I would say we should do it together. Because nobody wants to do the work forever, right? You want to do it while you're passionate and you're inspired, and you want to be joined by people that are just as passionate and inspired about that work as you. But again, somebody got to tell out, right? Like as we grow and mature, you get better as you get older, right? I'm getting older as I get older, right? So it's completely different. You know what I mean? Like it's completely different. And I like to think of things in like sports terms, right? It's easier for me to kind of put it together. So if we playing versus, that's a hard game. I know all your shots too, right? And you playing just like me, bro. It's a long game. We might not ever win 21 forever. But if we play together, imagine what we can do and how we could, dominate the game. And it doesn't always mean that I got to take every shot, right? Or you got to take every shot. But if we can play together and we both share the same passion to win, the same passion to succeed, it changes how much effort we got to put out, right? The kind of success that we can have. I think that's the nugget, right? The nugget is you don't got to do things by yourself, right? We don't have to do things because, it looks a certain way to me compared to that person. I mean, the idea is in working together, you give and you take, right? But you don't lose. And that's the piece. It's like in collaboration, people often think they lose, right? I got to lose something to give you something. And that's not what we're doing. We are building something together for us both to win. Right? It might not look the way that I want to, but I'm going to have all the little shiny things that I want, just like you are, right? So I think that's the piece is like you don't have to do it by yourself, and you don't have to do it on your own. And before you decide to do either of those, you should see who's already doing it. And if somebody's already doing it, plug in, you know what I mean? Because it's easier to steal power from you than try to create your own, you know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest piece. And traditionally, I think that's what was done, right? In succession and building leaderships, we passed leaders down. You went through everything I went through as a child. You was marching across Selma, and he was doing the same things. As one leader branched off and got older, met circumstances, the next one popped up, right? We ain't there no more. You know what I mean? We don't have those same individuals, and we don't invest the same way. So I think my nugget would be to invest in each other first by collaborating of doing it together. And I think that, it's easier said than done, of course, but I think that's the game changer right there.
I like it. I like collaboration. I like being big in the community. I appreciate you being here. One of the last things, or I have a few more questions, right, but it's coming towards the end. Do you have any questions for me?
Jonathan, I do. I think my questions are aligned with just your experiences in Kalamazoo. I have not been in Kalamazoo. I'm 7 years, been in Kalamazoo, and it's not my native place. I feel a part of the community and connected to the community, but I also don't. So knowing that you're from here, have more experience being here, I wanted to know, how do you feel about the availability of the promise and how you've seen times change with education, connectivity of Black men, collaboration and support? Like, how have you seen it change up until now, especially with the access or the availability of the promise?
I would say the change that I've seen is there's so many new ideas. There's everybody is very innovative, especially like since COVID, since that happened. I mean, even before then, like when I was trying to go to school, it was the OG. It was Bob in his office, just him. I'm calling him like, hey, can I still get that promise? Like, and I didn't know anything about it. Like, I knew like, oh, free tuition. But as a high school student who wasn't really interested in going to college, I didn't pay attention when somebody mentioned it to me. Now there's like 22 staff members, 5 interns, all these people doing this work, telling everybody about what the promise can do for them. And that's, when you think about it, that's like I can't do the math, but 23 times. There's 22 more people trying to help with the work. And then just the fact that we're trying to collaborate with everyone, we're trying to spread the word, but then also not just us, like all the different organizations. And that's one of the questions that I ask is like, how long have you been here? Like, how long have you been doing the work that you've been doing? And just like to see like, okay, this is new. Okay, this has been around since I was a kid. Why didn't I know about it? Mm-hmm. Why didn't my mom know about it? Why weren't we tapped into that? Mm-hmm. And so figuring out what strategies do we need to do to address that, because there's so many things going on in Kalamazoo, and a lot of it I didn't know until I started working here. I mean, like I knew some of the stuff, mm-hmm. but until I was literally working as community engagement coordinator, mm-hmm. I wasn't researching, community resources. I wasn't researching these different things. And once you, it kind of eliminates it's who you know, mm-hmm. that whole type of mentality. It kind of makes it, well, you do know somebody, at least one person in the Promise building, somebody at KBMA, Big Mike, yeah. Like
we connected.
Yeah. Like that is the difference that I've seen, is there's a huge effort in actually making connections for people, where before it was, you just got to get out there and, pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Do it.
Getting rid of that kind of mentality and actually like lifting other people up. That's the change that I've seen. Mm-hmm. But I've also seen like, there's this place doing this, there's this place that's also doing this, but why can't we bring them together? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the change, is there's a lot more collective impact, a lot of collaborative efforts, which I think is hard sometimes, because like in our culture, it's like, I got to get mine. I gotta be successful. Mm-hmm. So then to work in a place where it's like, it's not just you. Like, you got this whole team of people. You got other organizations that you can talk to and are willing to do the same thing. It's kind of almost like you're unlearning what you learn.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, let me ask you another question.
Okay.
So one thing I've noticed, right, and this is Michael's opinion. Not Michael the ED, Michael's opinion. Now, what do you think we need to do in Kalamazoo to change it to be a college-going community?
That's big, and it's something we've talked about. Okay, how do we get more people enrolled in school? How do we do this? And we're still figuring that out. Like we have the efforts that we've been doing. We have the strategies, but it's growing. It's changing. I think the biggest, or at least the most successful thing I've seen, is the near peer strategy, where you have someone who just did this. So like somebody who's an alumni or somebody that's still in the program, same program as you, and they can mentor you. So like I take my wife, she was in the nursing program at Western. When she was a freshman, she had a junior who was her mentor. Somebody in the same field, had been through this recently, talking about 2 years ago, and then helps them figure out, okay, this is what you need to do to pass this class. This is what you need to do. Having that near peer experience changes things, because one, you can relate to them better. The older I get, the harder it is for me to relate to younger people. Mm-hmm. But then that gap just makes it that much harder. Also, having somebody who's going through the same experiences, or who has had the same experience, it goes back to that. You don't want to take that class with that professor. Like you'll have a hard time. Take it with this one, and that person has like office hours you can go to. Like learning those little tips and tricks that make it easier for you. There's so much you can learn from somebody who's going through the same thing as you and has just done it. Because if I had a mentor, because you could have somebody who say they did the same thing, but it was a mentor that was like, went through the program 15 years before. it could be completely different. They might there is value in what they're sharing, but it might not be as relevant. So I think that's a good approach. I know I also like the 2-gen approach. If you're working on something for the kids, also doing something for the parents, so that way there's collective buy-in to it. If my kids have daycare that's provided for, then that allows me to go to school, me to do something to advance my career. That also puts me in a better position. I also like that. There's a whole bunch of ideas, and it's hard to see them because a lot of them are longer processes to see if they're successful.
On play.
So and that's hard to push when a lot of things want that immediate success. Even people want, instant gratification. It's hard to tell somebody, hey, if you go to school for 4 years and then you get this degree and then you work hard and that there's this waiting for you. It's harder to hear that as a younger person instead of like, oh, there's this, I could give you this gift card right now if you do this right now. Okay, cool. I'm more likely to do that.
Yep. I agree with everything, man. I always go to, if I had 12 bad years, 13, right? Not 13 bad years of anything. Would you add 14, 15, 16, 17 if you had to? And it's like, we got to do something to change the experience at the first, right? Like if education becomes exciting or, learning is cool and I'm not, man, I got a terrible 11th grade year, ninth grade was terrible. I was trying to figure it out in the 8th grade, you know what I mean? Like I was in fights in 6th grade because of it's all these different things that make school just terrible. Right? Like, it's not fun, man. That's why people be dancing at graduation because you made it, right? Like, you kicking it, right? Like, I love to see kids graduate and they just dance, right? Because it's a joy, man. I got through this, right? Yeah. Man, so after that, how can we expect to put you back in another environment, right, that's not going to treat you any better, right? You got to get through it. And in getting through it, we can navigate and tell you how to navigate it because we got people that's been through it. But we got to do something in the K through 12 experience for them to learn to love education, learn to love learning, right? Like something has to happen. And it's not for everybody, but you need to have the desire to learn something to make sure that the skills that you got from your K through 12 education can be translated to a career of success. And it's like that has to happen at the, in the schools too, so we got the both approach, right? So we got the access to the promise. We got to get you to the promise in order to make sure that you can access it, right? Or that you can, take advantage of what it's providing.
And make sure you're interested in
absolutely.
Not just like, oh, well, I'm good. Yeah. I'm not trying to go back to school.
Yeah, because you said something earlier. You was like, I didn't want to go to college, right? Like, I wasn't interested. Somebody told me about it, bro. I was the same way. Like, I'm not going to college, man. This is boring, right? Why I want to go back and go for free? Hey, it looked like this. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean?
Right. It wasn't until I was saw that I could be making money from the extra, like from the Pell Grant, from the other scholarships that I got. And I was like, oh, if I would have known I could go for free, also make this X amount of money, pay for my rent, pay for, save up, get a car. Like if it was explained to me like that, okay, that changes things now,
yes,
and later.
Man, that first refund check I got, man, it would have. Man, I would have been a millionaire if I'd have known what I did, man. Instead, my closet was lit, man. The car was nice, you know what I mean? Like, but imagine that conversation now, right? Like, man, you gonna get this, and this is what you should do with it. Look like this, you can do this with, man. It'll change your whole collegiate experience, right? Yeah. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I wasn't given that, right? And I'm sure you wasn't either. It's like you kind of learn that over time, and people might mention it to you, but those are the pieces that we need to kind of do to make sure as they get to that point, you got everything you need to make sure you can be successful. So that's one of the things I appreciate the promise, because you bring those experiences to the table, right, in the conversations with those individuals. So that's another hidden benefit, about us being connected to this work, because you get to share your experiences with the people you serve. So at the promise, you serve the community, you get to share your experiences with them.
So I'm gonna ask one more question. It's not a complicated one. Right. It's just how can people get connected to you and get involved with your work?
Man, so the easiest way, you can go to the website. It has a little section at the bottom. You can submit your information and follow up with you with all our contacts, events, and activities. I say the website is the easiest way, right? Because it's just a place you can go at any time. And you don't have to speak to anybody. But I think the idea that we hope for is that you should be able to connect with any black male, and we should be able to get connected. Hey, man, do you know I need some support for X, Y, and Z? Hey, I know Michael. I know Jonathan. I know enough people in this community to make sure that we all connected to do whatever we need to, and you feel supported. So I don't want you to just see the KBMA and Michael. I want you to see it in yourselves too. And that way, if somebody needs something, you're not just getting Michael, you're getting Jonathan, you getting Kajon, Kayon.
The producer.
I know, man. I mean, that's the second time. Bro. Hey, I want to just give
formerly intern now. What's the whole title? Digital media marketing and marketing manager.
To write that down.
That's dope, man. Because he went through the internship, then he got the job, got used the promise, like
man, and he was going to school at the same time.
I'm
bro.
like, man,
bro.
I'm just like, if I was doing that, if I had that opportunity, that every time I see some nice like that, I don't get jealous. Yeah. I'm just like, man, if that was available for everybody.
No, yeah, I get jealous, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of your youth, your energy, your engagement, like your future. Like I'm jealous. I'm happy. You know what I mean? I'm happy in my jealousy, right? But that's an emotion I'm leaning into, man. Ain't nothing wrong with it.
I try not to get jealous. That's what I was trying to say. But anyway, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate y'all, man.
You have a story to tell, and people need to hear it. So, you're ready. Be confident and know that you have everything you need.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate the podcast and the conversation and building with your brothers.